Welcome to the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. I'm Daniela Bruce and we'll be alongside Art Regner and Carly Johnston. Wherever you're watching today, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your live notifications so you don't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward. But luckily for you, if you do miss some, we have a Word on Woodward YouTube page now with all of our interviews on there, dating all the way back from the first show and as current as it gets. So make sure you check that out as well. You can also listen to today's show as a podcast on Google Podcast, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. You guys, we've got a lot of Red Wings draft coverage in today's show. Ken Kale is going to join us. We'll talk to Helene St. James of the Detroit Free Press, and TSN draft guru Craig Button will join Art for the headliner. We'll also have some Tigers news with Dan Dickerson and Evan Woodbury. A lot to cover today. And Art, it's been a busy week for us. I'm so excited to bring you back in. It's weird. We've been spending some time together. It's been the last 2 days that we've actually seen each other in person. So we're back to this virtual thing.
Hold on, Daniela. I think they're about to make the last pick in the NHL draft. The final pick. All right, hold on. All right, the pick is in. The draft is officially over. No, you're right. It's been a lot of fun, though. I mean, if you're a hockey fan, and we talked about much similar to the Tigers, when you have a team that has some nice prospects and you're starting to see a little bit of momentum building forward and starting to see a core and a semblance of a team, the last couple of days, if you're a Red Wing fan, as I said, has been pretty exciting. Steve again, makes all kinds of trades, makes 4 moves yesterday. At first they have 10 picks. Then we think maybe it's 11, and then it ends up being 12, like we thought, that it was going to be. So it's been a lot of fun. Now, I don't look at this. This is what makes my job or our job great. To me, this isn't work, because if I really did have a job, a real legitimate, hardworking job, I'd still be doing what I was doing the last couple of days, following the NHL draft. So it doesn't get any better than that for me. And I think for everybody that, works on the Word on Woodward, I mean, this is kind of what you live for. And I'm really, really eager for this season to begin.
I am too, Art, and that's a perfect segue into our Big Three presented by Chevy. The first topic of the Big Three is the NHL draft, and we're going to focus specifically on the Red Wings. Like you mentioned, there were 12 picks for the Red Wings in this NHL draft. They had 4 trades throughout the day, and they were all trades for more draft picks, trading back, gaining another pick. There were no player trades involved in yesterday's draft, but the Red Wings acquired a lot of players, all different positions. We'll start with the biggest one, Art. Lucas Raymond at the number 4 overall pick, the Swedish winger. We were all a little bit surprised, but the more I hear about this guy, Art, I am really excited for him to be a Red Wing.
Well, yeah, certainly. I know we've touched upon this in some of our previous shows this week, but really, I think that, when Steve Yzerman speaks, and it's not very often, but when he does, he actually says something. And after the fact, so to speak, after Raymond was picked, I mean, up to that, did anybody hear Lucas Raymond and the Detroit Red Wings? Maybe a few. Kevin Allen said it last week on our show. But with that all said, when he explained his reasoning behind it, I think that why Lucas Raymond is a Red Wing is because he is a complete player. He's a playmaker. He can score goals. He can, as we said, he can distribute the puck. He's good at both ends of the ice. He's shifty. He's really a good skater. And I think when you put all that, and when Steve Yzerman says he has the opportunity to be an elite player in this league, well, the Red Wings need an elite player who is a complete player, a standalone, a stand above. And that's what Lucas Raymond provides. I'm not knocking anybody on the Red Wings roster here. I don't want anybody to think that. You can never have enough good elite players. Look at the Tampa team that Steve built. I mean, their forward core is astoundingly gifted. And Lucas Raymond kind of fits that bill. So I guess when you really look at it, and that's why Steve Yzerman and his staff are paid, this is their jobs, it makes sense now when Steve puts it in context why Lucas Raymond was the 4th overall pick and the first pick taken by the Red Wings in a draft where they added 11 other players besides Lucas.
It was a very exciting draft for the Red Wings. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk a lot about that throughout today's show. So for now, we're going to move on to our second topic of the Big Three, which is some Tigers news. We have the Instructional League roster at hand now, Art. And the reason that this is so exciting is because we know that last season was a very strange season in the fact that there was no minor league baseball. And so the Tigers really didn't get to see their prospects in action very much. So with this instructional league, not all of the prospects that we are really excited to see are on this list, but you've got Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, Parker Meadows, and then a lot of other prospects. Daniel Cabrera might be one that fans are interested in seeing, but this is a very big deal this year because, like I said, we haven't really got to see our prospects in action.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, when you look at this, these are certain guys, and here's where you sort of see the diamonds in the rough. Guys that you might have heard a little bit about, and now they're starting to make their move. This is an opportunity for them to establish themselves in the eyes of the organization. Remember, even though Alavila and his staff is still here and they're not going anywhere, there's going to be a whole new managerial staff eventually, and whomever that is. I mean, this is an opportunity for perhaps a player or two to kind of stand out. Not that Ron Gardenhire already made, decisions on these guys or talked to Allen, said, I don't really, this guy, I don't think he's going to be that good of a player or whatever their discussions entail. But what I'm thinking is that this is a really, really good opportunity for some guys who perhaps felt that time was running out of them in the organization. Well, here you go. Instructional league. These are guys obviously targeted by the Tigers that they think, have a chance, will fill out, their minor league rosters or maybe even the big clubs roster. So I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, Gage Workman, Spencer Torkelson's teammate, he's a third baseman, can hit for power, really good hitter. There's a guy that probably needs as many at bats as possible. To establish his major league swing, get used to, major league pitching, even though it's instructional league, but still, they need to start progressing, I guess is what I'm saying. They need to play games. Why are the Red Wings loaning all these guys to Europe, all their prospects? Because they need to play games. The instructional league is really, really good, and it's vitally important this year. Usually it's a blip on the radar, but because, as Danielle, as you so astutely pointed out, they have not. They haven't played much. These guys, they played against each other. They go down to the local, junior high on their ball field and, are begging the neighborhood kids, hey, will you play a game of pickup with me here? Whatever. I got to play some baseball, buddy. I know you're only 6, but can you throw the ball? So I think this is a good thing. Obviously, I'm eager to see how that plays out. I'm eager to see what the reports are from the instructional league, who stands out. The guy you did mention, who we always hear good things about. I'm really eager to see him eventually in the Old English D. Is a guy like Parker Meadows.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be very exciting. And as I mentioned earlier, Dan Dickerson and MLive's Evan Woodbury will be joining the show later, and I'm sure they will talk a lot more about the instructional league roster being released. For now, we're going to move on to our third and final topic of the Big Three. And we've got some NHL news that Gary Bettman announced ahead of the start of the NHL draft. He said that officially the target date for the NHL to start is January 1st. And obviously, right now, that is an estimate. We don't know anything for sure. Plans will be in place for that. But I have to tell you, that made me so excited that I decided to decorate this whole office in Hockeytown. I am like the world's biggest Red Wings fan right now because I am looking forward to January 1st, hopefully being the start of the Red Wings season.
Well, I was going to say something about your surroundings. I thought that was, that was your bedroom, and you just, you got so charged up about the about the draft that you wanted to make all the new players feel welcome.
I'm amped.
Really. I mean, I can tell. I mean, it looks great. I mean, you can't see it, but I finally brought out Jamie Pusher's stick that he gave me many, many years ago to use as a prop. Yeah, that's how psyched I am. But with all that said, I'm eager for it to start, and I hope it starts. I think even there it is. You can see that's Jamie Pusher's stick, by the way. It's really, really big. Jamie Pusher is a tall guy, and a little replica of the Stanley Cup and the World Globe. And you've got to have art, a DIA bumper sticker. Okay, enough of that. But what I'm saying is that I look at this start date, and I'm hopeful that it can start. Now, the thing that made the NHL work so well and the NBA was that they were in bubbles. Now you're talking about 31 cities all playing games, a lot of travel. We can see the NFL is kind of delicately massaging it. Baseball had some hiccups along the way, but then they really got their act together. So I think it's going to work depending on what turn this pandemic takes as the weather gets colder, and we'll see, exactly what happens. But if everything is kind of the same right now, we've kind of leveled things out, so to speak. And I'm certainly not a medical doctor, so I really don't know what I'm talking about. But let's say everything is kind of leveled out. Maybe you do start January 1st. Maybe guys, because I think they're NHL players, and I tip my cap to the NBA players too. Once they started and they stayed in the bubble and it worked, they kind of stayed there. They did exactly what they had to do. Well, I think if they put in those precautions and they learn from Major League Baseball and from what the NFL is going through, maybe hockey does start on January 1st. It'll be interesting to see if they have a Winter Classic. I know that one was scheduled. If they would put up their showcase event on that day, because obviously even the bowl season is going to be kind of weird this year too. So who knows what January 1st is really going to look like. But I'm excited, and I think it's going to go off. And even though I get down on the NHL about the draft lottery and several other crazy ideas that they seem to have, I will say this: they pulled it off. They pulled off a great playoff run, very high caliber hockey. That's a testament to the system the NHL put in place, and also the players. Don't forget about the players. I mean, these guys were engaged, and they were playing for keeps, so to speak. So I'm excited. I'm eager. I'm keeping one finger crossed, not double, because that's bad luck. But one finger is crossed, and I hope, or one hand fingers, whatever. You get the picture. I'm not doing double. But I'm looking forward to having the season start. I'm eager to see the Red Wings get on the ice. I know Steve's going to do everything in his power to make sure that the Red Wings start 2 to 3 weeks earlier. He, along with the Red Wings and the 6 other clubs that didn't make the playoffs, maybe we'll see some of these prospects and some of the young guys that are in Europe that will come back. And it's going to be an interesting season. It'll be different, but it will be interesting, and I think it'll be competitive. All you have to do is look at the playoffs just concluded by the NHL.
We're all really excited for hockey to make its return and make its return to Little Caesars Arena. That's what we're all really looking forward to. That wraps up our big 3 for today, everybody, presented by Chevy. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. Now, everybody, we're going to get into the mailbag, and we're bringing in a guest that has been with us throughout the entire draft. The mailbag is delivered to you by Little Caesars, and today's guest is none other than your Red Wings radio play-by-play announcer, Ken Kal. Ken, it's great to see you again. What a week we have had so far.
Yeah, it's really been fun, Daniela and Art, and it was good to be with you guys live, and we had a really good show, a good time, and it was interesting to see what the Red Wings were going to do with the draft picks, and yesterday's draft took forever, it seemed. But in all honesty, I think the Red Wings graded out well. So it'll be interesting to see how Lucas Raymond does and everybody else. And I'm just really excited about the season. You were talking about it starting perhaps on January 1st, and I think all the Red Wing fans here are excited about that as well, and to see their new Red Wings.
Definitely, Ken, and all of our mailbag questions today are related to the NHL draft and Red Wings hockey. So let's get right into it, Ken. And the first question is for you. After seeing how the draft unfolded, does this change the Red Wings' outlook for free agency?
No, I don't think so. I think Steve Yzerman had a plan going in, and that plan's not going to change. And I think what we really have to look at is, other than maybe Lucas Raymond, everybody else is going to have to get a little seasoning, get some time to develop. I don't really see many new players that are going to be coming in and making this team, obviously, just because of the fact that a lot of them are going to be playing overseas. But, the Red Wings did make a few announcements that they didn't offer qualifying offers to Madison Bowie, Christopher Wren, and Brendan Perlini. And that opens up a couple of forward spots and also a spot on defense. So I think going into free agency, the Red Wings will try and address that issue, maybe plug some holes in that regard. And also, as Steve Yzerman mentioned, he's going to look after a goaltender and see what he can pick up there. But I don't think it's going to change at all. And, like I said, these draft picks, they're 18 years old. They need time to develop. We're all excited. We all want them on the ice sooner than later, but that's not going to happen.
Definitely, as you mentioned, Ken, there are some holes that do need to be filled now. And you got to be looking at guys like Philip Zadina. I think Art pretty much solidifies that he is a Red Wing, but we're probably going to see him as a Red Wing for a full season next year. So that's really exciting for Red Wings fans. And Art, let's move on to question number 2. This one is your question. Who do you think was the late round steal of the draft for the Red Wings?
Late round steal. I am going to go with goaltender Jan Bednash. I think, I know it looks like Bednar, and if he were a North American, it would be Bednar, but it's Jan Bednash. And the reason why is that Jan Bednash is a very athletic and gifted goalie, but he's one of those players that I like to say he's kind of a feast or famine type of player. When he is on, he is exceptional. No one is better. As a matter of fact, he reminds me of, and I'm not saying he is, but another Czech goaltender that we're familiar with, a man who designs active wear, sportswear for people, Dominik Hasek. And Dominik Hasek, when Dom was on, he had these unorthodox save moves, and Bednash is exactly the same way. I mean, he makes saves because he's so athletic that you're like wowed by. But when he's bad, and I mean when he's bad, he's really bad. And so that's the thing. It's consistency with him. But I believe that he is the type of guy. You look at his numbers, they aren't all that great. We had Chris Draper on last night on a Zoom call after all the draft was over, and he talked about Bednash. And he said, I saw him play 2 games of the World Juniors where or he beat the U.S. development team twice, and this team had like 11 number 1 draft choices on it. So, I mean, the potential's there. Can he get it straight? Can he learn the goaltending position? Can he learn the mechanics? If he can, then I believe that he's going to be a steal in the draft. But there's a lot of guys. This draft, again, much like last year's draft. I don't want to go back to last year's draft, but virtually every guy that the Red Wings drafted last year had good years the following season, whether it was in college, the European League, or the AHL like Mo Seider. All of them maybe even exceeded the Red Wings' own expectations, what they expected, their first year, quote unquote, being affiliated with a pro team. So I think there's a lot of potential in this year's draft class. But, goaltender, maybe because I'm a little bit of a goaltending freak, but if Jan Bednash can be the guy, and he's big, he's like 6'4", taken, in the 4th round, 107th overall, that would be a guy that I would look at because the potential, the athleticism, the unorthodox save ability, maybe that's a Czech Republic thing, I don't know, but that's all there.
I like it, Art. I had a feeling that you were going to pick the goalie. I don't know why. Maybe it is because you're a goalie freak, but I had a feeling. Ken, this next question for you is a really good question. You mentioned some holes on the team, and Applicator's buyout puts more spots available on the team next year as well. Should we look for the young guys to come up? And here's the twist. Does the expansion draft complicate when they will get the call-up?
Well, that's a good question. And I think that the Red Wings they have to start looking at, who they want to protect. And I'm sure Steve Yzerman and his management group are already doing that. But, if you call up some of these players and if they do make the team, then obviously, if they get so many games in, then you could possibly lose them in the expansion draft coming up with Seattle coming into the league in the not too distant future. I don't know. I just think that, again, I think this team is still a couple of years away, and that's not to say that they can't change things around quicker than that. So I just think that there's a good young group of drafted players, as Art mentioned, over the last couple of years, and it's just going to take a little more time for them to develop. But once they develop, they're going to get a good group of guys coming in that are going to be Red Wings for a long period of time. I mean, Joe Veleno's one. We talked about Mo Seider. Mo Seider is the guy I think actually that could probably step right in and really make this team. I think they need him back there on the blue line. He had a great year last year in Grand Rapids. Smart, cerebral player, can score goals on the occasion and can make things happen. He's big, he's strong. So, Mo Seider's the kind of guy that I think could step right in and really start his career and really help this team back there on the blue line. So there are some holes, but I'm looking at free agency too. I think Steve will plug some of those holes, and they'll be competitive going into this new season, especially in goal with the help that Bernier is going to get. And also we'll see what goaltender that they're going to get in free agency.
And hopefully we see these guys on the ice sooner rather than later. That brings us to our last question for the both of you. Art, you can answer first. At the start of the draft, they announced the expected start date of the season being January 1st. Which rival would you most like to see us face at the start of the new year? Of course, we won't have our New Year's Eve game that the Red Wings always have, but hey, New Year's Day might be just as good.
Well, with me, I think this is a pretty obvious answer. I'd like to see the Toronto Maple Leafs. I
knew it.
I just think like the picture of, I think there's just something that's simplistic, but it's beautiful too. Just the aesthetics, red and white versus blue and white. I think they're the only two teams in the league that their color schemes are just two colors. And, blue and white, red and white. I just love it. I just love the history. I guess depending on which media guide you want to believe, I think they're right around 500 too, against each other. I think the Red Wings actually are a few games above 500. The Leafs don't kind of see it that way. That might take out with ties and shootouts or something. I don't know. The Canadian system is a little bit different than us. They're on the metric system and we're on, whatever system we're on. But I'm just saying that I would love it to be the Toronto Maple Leafs. Possibly, it's probably going to be, another team I wouldn't mind seeing is Ottawa. I think that Detroit and Ottawa in a couple of years from now when we're doing well, I think those are going to be the two top teams without question in the Atlantic Division going for it. So I'd like to see that rivalry start to build up, but it's probably most likely going to be because of travel and limitations. I would say either Columbus or Chicago. I think it's going to be one of those teams. And in typical Art Regner fashion, I've given you 4 different teams.
Yeah,
so hopefully I hit on one of them. But truly, I'd love to see Toronto in here to start the season.
Okay, well, Toronto's your choice. Ken, you don't have to listen to any of the other teams that he rambled off. He chose Toronto. So what is your choice?
Well, I'm going to take a page out of Art's book. I'm going to go, let's see here, Ottawa, Montreal, Los Angeles, Anaheim, St. Louis, Chicago. There, I got 7 of them or whatever. No, you know who I'd like to see? I'd really like to see. I don't know if the border situation is going to be, by January 1st is going to be okay. Maybe the Canadian teams might have to play Canadian teams for a while. I don't know. But I will say this. Why not bring Lafreniere in on opening night at Little Caesars Arena so we can see a first look at him in a Ranger uniform? It's an original 6 team, and let's see his baptism by fire in the National Hockey League. So I would like to see the New York Rangers and the Red Wings go at it.
I like that. Wow. Stick an original 6. I was going to say Boston too. I always like when Boston's in town, and we played pretty well against Boston last season, so that would be a great.
Lafreniere, I'm sorry, Danielle. If Lafreniere,
I know you are.
Debut at Little Caesars Arena, I don't care if there's a quarantine, if the whole world's on lockdown. There's going to be a lot of angry Red Wing fans at that arena protesting. I mean, I think no way. It's going to be like. It's going to be like the Village descending upon Frankenstein's monster or something. The villagers at the end of that movie. I mean, I love the idea, though. I love the idea, but you have to think, because it's New York City, all the glitz and all the glam, that he's probably going to make his debut at home in Madison Square Garden. But, I love that idea. Once again, Kenny Cal, and he hits a home run. And I'm going to tell you something. I've been at Comerica Park with Ken Cal. We did, I don't know, batting practice or something. This guy can hit. He hit balls into the stands. And, I'm sitting there. I'm always swinging late. I'm left-handed, so I'm like, grounding out to shortstop constantly. I can't even get around on the swing. And Ken is just popping ball after ball into the stands. I thought it was like Babe Ruth or something. But so another home run.
Not anymore. Those are my earlier days. Not anymore.
Well, we're going to have to put that to the test, Ken. That might be our spring project. Next time we can get on a baseball field, we're going to have to toss you some softballs and see if you can really hit.
Oh, no, these are hard balls. These are hard balls. I'm talking major league.
It was a home run derby championship, and our team consisted of guys that were in radio. That was our team, and we had a good time out there, and it was a lot of fun. It really was. It's always fun taking batting practice in a baseball stadium, and skating on the ice at Little Caesars Arena. That's nice too. But I don't know. I'll tell you what. I'm up there in age. I just celebrated a birthday. My knees can't twist like they used to, so I don't know, Art. You're putting a lot of pressure on me.
You know what?
Injury. You don't want that.
You know what? 10 pitches, 3 of them are at least out in the ballpark. He's going to hit Kaline's porch out there. Yeah, that's the power this man has. And that's the opposite.
My eyesight was better, though. My eyesight back then was better. Now I need glasses.
That might be the biggest problem, Ken. I think that one is where you're going to run into some issues. I believe your knees would be fine. Your eyes, maybe not.
That's right. I eat a lot of carrot cake, though. They say carrots are good for your eyes, so
that's the
carrot
same
cake
thing.
is what I like. Yeah.
The cake part, not so much, but the carrots, yes, definitely.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. And here we are, always ending this segment talking about food. So thank you to Little Caesars for delivering the mailbag. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. We've still got a jam-packed show for you guys. We're going to talk some Tigers baseball with Dan Dickerson and Evan Woodbury of MLive, and Craig Button, draft guru, is going to join Art Regner for the headliner later. But right now, I'm going to toss it over to Carly.
Thanks, Daniela. It is time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. And today I'm joined by Detroit Free Press writer and now author, Lane St. James. How's it going? Good to see you.
Hey, Carly, I miss seeing you around Little Caesars Arena.
I know. It's been far, far too long. But as we mentioned, Little Caesars Arena, let's dive right into things because we have a lot to cover. A lot of moves have been made in the past week or so. So let's start with the 2020 NHL draft that we saw the past few days that just ended last night. One very vague question to start us off here. How do you think it went for the Detroit Red Wings?
I think it went very well. I'm just coming out with my grades in today's Detroit Free Press. I know everybody is excited about Lucas Raymond. I'm also very excited about William Wallinder, the first pick in the second round. I think he's, I'm projecting here, but I think he's going to pair up really nicely with Moritz Seider down the road. They're both 6'4", both very terrific skaters. Seider shoots left. I think this is a pairing that could potentially anchor Detroit's defense for years to come.
Beautiful. Okay, so now let's focus on the first round pick. We got Lucas Raymond. A bit of a surprise as he was not expected to go as high as 4. But what do you think he can add to this Detroit Red Wings organization? Why did Steve Yzerman pick him out of this amazing draft pool?
I think it's very interesting. 2 years in a row now, Steve's kind of surprised with his first pick. Certainly Lucas was a very highly rated prospect, but I think people were thinking maybe can you pass up on Jamie Drysdale or Jake Sanderson? He picks a guy who Steve says, has no glaring weaknesses, and he's in a very good spot in Sweden playing there for this coming season. So I think, again, you look at down the road, is he going to be somebody who's going to be setting up Philip Zadina? I think you have, another top line player here in the making.
Yeah, and he did say when we were speaking with him that he is a playmaker, something that the Red Wings need, a bit of a setup. And after that, we saw the Red Wings select many more players in the 2nd through 7th rounds. What and who stood out to you the most?
I think Niederbach is going to be another playmaker. They do need guys in the middle who can set up their wingers. I think they have a good scoring wingers already in the system, but they need somebody who can set them up. I'm excited about him. Sebrango, I think he looks like somebody who's going to bring grit in. He's an offensive guy as well, a good mobile skater, but I like the grit he brings. Emil Viro is another mobile guy. Probably, the lower you get into the later rounds, the longer the projects become. But I think, give Steve a lot of credit in the span of 2 years with guys like Seider, Wallinder, Tuomisto, Sebrango, Viro. He's added tremendous depth to the Detroit blue line, to their depth chart. And that's really something they badly needed when he took over.
Absolutely. And I know when you mentioned Sabrango's a gritty player, that is something that the Red Wings do need, get back to the old hockey, if you will, a little bit more of a gritty play. But it does seem like a common denominator in a lot of these picks is that they have a high hockey IQ, They're cerebral players. Do you think this was planned by Steve and company, or was it just happenstance?
I think it's something you look for because I think that's one area that's very hard to teach. Players either have it or they don't. I mean, you can ask somebody, you can improve your skating by training really hard. You can get stronger. But I think hockey IQ, you either have it or you don't. And these guys, they seem to have it in spades. And that's something that's really going to benefit them. Like the fact that that's the base they come from. And then, like Steve said, you have to let them grow into their bodies over the years, get physically mature. But when you already come in with the kind of smarts these guys have, that's a huge advantage.
Speaking of growing and developing, are you expecting to see any of these guys in a Winged Wheel sweater or even a Griffins jersey next season?
No, I mean, I think 2020, you look at Wings have put more and more of their best prospects in Europe for a reason. They're playing, especially in Sweden. Germany, I think, is looking to start up in December. I mean, now the NHL's target date is January 1st. We don't know what's going to happen with any of the minor leagues. So I think especially, the Swedes the Swedish Hockey League is an excellent, excellent league. So I think it makes sense to keep them there. They're in great spots. And Wings, I think half of Sweden works for the Red Wings organization in some capacity. So they have a lot of eyes and a lot of help, as far as development, if any of them need it.
Absolutely. We are a very good organization for development. But now on the flip side of things, the Red Wings said goodbye to some veteran players in Abdelkader, Eriksson, Daly, and Howard. Do you think that's due in part of trying to make this a young developing team or just poor play by these players?
I think you really have to look at, especially Daly and Eriksson between injuries and age. And there was no way they were coming back. Jimmy, had he played better, I think he could have certainly earned himself another contract. But he won 2 games. And, didn't even finish his last 2 starts in the NHL. So kind of a sad last season for a guy who's certainly done a lot for the Red Wings over the years. And in Justin's case, his play really dropped off after Pavel Datsyuk. He lost Pavel Datsyuk as his center in 2016. And I think the fact, maybe if he had brought a little more physicality, but, he played good minutes. And for $4.25 million, I think the Wings had every right to expect more. And even though it's a little surprised, it's a costly decision to tie yourself to his contract for 6 years. And I do think if these were normal circumstances and there was going to be an AHL season, you could have waived him and sent him there and gained a roster spot and a little bit of salary cap relief. But Steve has a lot of financial flexibility, and he showed he's willing to go this route. And I think it's interesting too. I mean, he's shed quite a few players that he inherited from Ken Holland. I mean, I think he's made quite an impact in, a year and a half already.
I couldn't agree more. It's really hard to say bye to those players, but sometimes, you think at the end of the day, this is a business. And also with Steve Yzerman saying last night that the Red Wings not qualified Madison Bowie, Christopher N. and Brendan Perlini, does that open up jobs for some of these prospects?
Well, that's interesting. I think especially Bowie, because he's a right shot offensive guy on the blue line, that there you could see Moritz Seider slide into that spot. But again, the pandemic interferes with every aspect of life, and they may think he's better off if they place him in Sweden. It'll be harder to bring him back, but for his development, get him playing an important role. And I wouldn't be surprised if Steve kind of finds a right shot defenseman in a similar way he acquired Mark Stahl and gains a draft pick along the way via free agency, signs somebody for 1 or 2 years to add depth. He has a lot of flexibility in that way. So I think as far as opening up spots for prospects, it's a little different just because of all the uncertainty. But somebody like Yevgeny Svechnikov should benefit. I mean, he's somebody who potentially could fill Justin Abdelkader's role.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see what Steve does in this next season. But with all this future of the Red Wings talk, I do want to switch gears and talk about your new book. I see it right above your shoulder there, The Big 50 Detroit Red Wings. It's on pre-order now, but available next Tuesday. Congratulations. What can fans expect to read in this book?
You know what? It was such a joy. I spent most of last year writing it and then much of this year editing it and adding great pictures. And it was wonderful. I mean, Steve Yzerman, Nicholas Lidstrom, Scotty Bowman, Chris Chelios all spoke to me. Many others, Mark Howd, just specifically for this book. Chris Osgood contributed the foreword. So it was, fun for me to go back. I started covering the team in the late 90s, just as they got really good, going back and remembering all those great times, and then going back, and researching the 50s and the 60s, and just, the incredible stories with Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay, and the sad story of Terry Sawchuk. But just the phenomenal history this team has had, and I know fans are eager for the Wings to bounce back to being contenders. And I just, researching the book and writing the book, I mean, it took Steve 14 years as a player to win his first Stanley Cup. And that was with, and there's a chapter in there, of course, on the 1989 draft. But I loved writing it. I mean, there's just so much tremendous history. There are many little sub chapters in there. It's over 100,000 words. It was just, they gave me originally, said come in at 80,000 words. And I'm said that's not possible with a franchise with this rich of a history.
No kidding. And I understand the foreword was written by someone special as well.
Yes, Chris Osgood. He agreed to it right away. And, Chris can sometimes be a little hard to pin down, but he was great, and I know how much it meant for him to play for the Wings and to come back for the Wings and to be a part of the organization. And he's somebody, when he was a player, I always knew I'd walk away from him laughing, because he's just, he can be hard to hear. We know he's a soft talker, but he's incredibly funny. So yeah, I was very, very thrilled that he contributed the foreword.
So not only did you put years of memories and I'm sure hard work into writing this book, it is about the history of the Red Wings, but you also had a chapter about the rebuild that we're currently going through. Was that harder to write when you were writing all of these amazing memories and winning Stanley Cups?
It was the one that I kept going back to and editing the most because things change, and so absolutely. I mean, I had Andreas Athanasiou in there as part of the rebuild until he was traded last spring. So, and just the impact of the young players and Steve's, a little bit of Steve's touch already. So that was a chapter that was, that probably took the most editing. The Steve chapter was fascinating to write. This was before I started covering the Wings. I didn't realize how close he really did come to being traded. People look back and think, oh, it was just Scotty blowing smoke, but it really was there. And, there's a little snippet in there too about why, in his own words, he looked like a hillbilly and those are his words, when he hoisted the cup in 1997. There are sub chapters in there too. And I mean, Marian Illich has had a tremendous impact on the franchise. Marguerite Norris, it's technically called the Men and Moments, but there are certainly women who had an impact as well. So, and revisiting the Thomas Holmstrom chapter, how he took a snowmobile for a spin around the ice at Joe Louis Arena after his 1000th game, when that was a gift from his teammate. So it was just so many delightful memories in there.
Amazing. Congratulations once again. It's amazing to become an author and write a book. Where can fans find this? Let's give one last plug where they can get it.
It's available online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble already for pre-order, and it'll be in bookstores on Tuesday. And people can also reach out to me. My email is at the bottom of every one of my stories. If they want an autographed copy, that's certainly also a possibility. I'm hoping to do book signings at some point, but Carly, as we know, in this pandemic-riddled 2020, everything is on a week-to-week basis, right?
Right, but at least now we all have a lot more time to read your book.
Thank you. Yes, I hope so.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been great finally getting to talk hockey with you once again. Thank you so much for being on Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Carly and Helene. That was amazing. It's so cool to see that she has written a book. That's such a great accomplishment. Congratulations, Helene. You guys can get that book next week, Tuesday, or you can pre-order it now. Right now, we are going to get into Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook, an official partner of the Detroit Tigers. But again, today we are all NHL draft talk, you guys. I want to summarize again what the Red Wings did yesterday. They had 11 picks heading in to the draft. They had 9 on the second day. And they ended up with 12 picks after going through all 7 rounds. 4 trades were made. Again, they traded just for picks. They moved back a couple of spots and acquired more picks in later rounds. So everyone was really excited when we talked to Steve Yzerman and Chris Draper in their press conferences last night. They were both really pleased with the players that they did acquire. Of course, the big pick being 4th overall, Lucas Raymond. But you even heard Elaine just say it. She's excited about William Wallander, who they took in the 2nd round, along with Theodore Niederbach Niederbach and Cross Hannes. And when you look at these players positionally, they're all across the board. We got the goalie Bednosh in the 4th round. So Art mentioned that he was really excited for him. A lot of prospects added to the Red Wings organization yesterday. And Art, it's been a while since we were able to say that the Red Wings drafted 12 prospects in a single draft.
Well, that's right. The last time that the Red Wings drafted 12 prospects, first of all, let's say this. At one time, it used to be 12 rounds to draft. So if you look at previous drafts, you say, oh, my gosh, well, they weren't trading around. I mean, they were pretty much just had like 12 picks because it was 12 rounds. I look at all different kinds of things. And, when they had in 1993, the last time they had 12 picks, two guys kind of made it out of there. Anders Eriksson, who the Red Wings eventually traded, but Anders Eriksson and then Norm Miracle, who was had a cup of coffee with Detroit. He was a goaltender, but has really kind of come and, Steve saw something in him because he's now an executive with Tampa. But, we always talk about the 89 draft. The Red Wings had 12 picks there. That's the draft that gave you Sillinger, Bugner, Sergei, Nick, Dallas Drake, and then in the 11th round, it gave you Vladimir Konstantinov, Pavel Datsuk, was 6th overall in his draft class. In 99, Zetterberg was 7th in the 7th round. So I guess what I'm trying to say is basically this, is that there's a lot of picks and you hope to hit on some. I think Steve said it again last night, where if you look at these guys, some of these players are going to exceed our expectations and some of them are not going to exceed our expectations and actually not come anywhere near our expectations. That's just the way this game is played. So, I think it's a little bit deceiving when you start looking back at Red Wings drafts because now it's only 7 rounds. A long time ago, it used to be 12, a lot of time. But where the Red Wings were at in 93, the last time they had this many picks, they were kind of an up-and-coming team at that point. The 89 draft, that's why I wanted to spot that 89 draft. Sergei's coming into his heyday. Nick is obviously established. Vladdy is right there. So, I mean, they were a good team at that point. Unfortunately, they're not a very good team right now, and I think that's why you see Steve, more and more picks. I remember last night I said, hey, you made 4 trades today. Is that the busiest you've ever been on draft day? And he goes, well, in Tampa, I think I don't know, in 12, I did something like that. He goes, I actually thought I made 10 trades today. He goes, the phone was moving so much. So, so it sounded like it was kind of a hectic draft room, even though Steve is, quarantined himself because of the COVID-19 possibility. But with that said, I just think that 12 picks. I think they already have 10 for next year. When he starts trading picks for players, and Danielle, I think you said that, when he starts trading picks for players, but he was trading picks to add more picks, moving down a couple of spots in any given round, and then picking up a pick in the later rounds. That's how they ended up with 12. I think, again, I just think that he knows what he's doing. Helena was absolutely right. Great interview there, by the way, Carly. Is that she said you can see already in a short period of time, and this is not a knock against Ken Holland, whom we all love, respect, and admire. A lot of guys are wearing Stanley Cup rings because of Ken Holland. So let's put that to bed right now. But you can see the imprint of Steve in a very, very short period of time. And I'm not surprised because he was just an intense guy, shall I say, as a player, and he was focused and he's intense and he's going to get the job done. He's made hard decisions. You think that was an easy decision to just cut Justin Abdicator away, guy who's worn an A forever, good community guy? Those are tough decisions. You're talking about human beings here, but at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for the Detroit Red Wings, and there's no one better at this point to rebuild this hockey club than Steve Yzerman. I know that I went on for a while, so I will be quiet now.
That's the way I was sitting. I was like this. I was like, cut away from me. I can't smile anymore. My
I
cheese
was
steak.
I've got
I did
I'm
want to
going to
ask you
defer
a
to
follow-up, but
Oh,
can you
okay.
promise
I was
to
going
keep
to
it
defer
shorter
to
because
Jamie.
we
Push
got it.
it.
Carly's got a lot to talk about too. I know she does,
I
but
do.
All right.
I want to ask you what this means. I don't think it changes super drastically with the draft picks that we acquired yesterday and the players that we now have in the organization. But when you look at what the Red Wings have, and Steve actually talked about this a little bit last night too, when you look at what they actually have, where are they in the rebuild process right now?
That's a good question.
They're still, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're probably, at an accelerating 3, if that makes sense. I mean, and I asked him a question last night too about, are you starting to see a semblance of a core, a semblance of a team? And and he said, look, and I've been in the offices. They have a board that is pretty amazing to look at. It's a board of it's the Red Wings, and then it's Grand Rapids, then it's Toledo, and then it's colleges in Europe, and it has every prospect that they have. Not only does it have their names, it has when they have to, how long they're signed for and all that. And, and that's what kind of I was driving at. And, it seemed to indicate to me that he knows what he has with the Red Wings. And I think he knows that roster is not going to be significantly changing. I mean, you still have a nice core group there and guys that he's going to build around. But I also think that, when he looks at the board now and sees those names on there, many of whom he had a hand in drafting, I think he's thinking, you know what? It's coming together. It's coming together. And that's why I say an accelerating 3. Hopefully by next year's draft, maybe he's at 6, But when he gets to 7 and 8, hold on, because then it's going to be fun. Long-term contracts, free agents, trades. I mean, Steve's going to be, we'll see the full Yzerman effect at that point. But what we're seeing right now has been pretty damn impressive.
Carly, we know that the Red Wings have a rich history with Swedish players and Swedish Red Wings, to be specific. It seems like they are still on trend to do that all over again.
Yes, I'm happy I got this topic. I was excited to talk about it. So obviously, we saw the Red Wings draft 3 Swedish players in the past 2 days, okay? Left winger and first rounder Lucas Raymond, of course. And then second rounders, defenseman William Wallander and center Theodor Niederbach. Obviously, we know Swedes in a winged wheel jersey is a beautiful thing, but let me remind you of a few in Red Wings history. Let's talk about Nick Lidstrom, Henrik Zetterberg, Nicholas Kronwall, Tomas Holmstrom, and Johan Franzen, just to name a few, okay? We know the Red Wings love their Swedish players because before the draft, we already had nine players from Sweden in the Red Wings system. Okay, we know Dmytro Timashov, who is on the Red Wings, and then we have some in the organization. Matthias Brome, Jonathan Berggren, Albin Gruve, Elmer Solderblom, Gustav Lindstrom, Albert Johansson, Philip Larson, and Victor Bratstrom. I mean, come on. 9 players already in the system, and now we're adding 3. That means 12 Swedish players. And I know Swedish breeds good hockey players, but there's definitely a trend in the Detroit Red Wings organization. And to me, the future's looking bright for Hockey Town with all these Swedish players.
I would say so too. Art, what do you think? Do the Red Wings just have more scouts in Sweden? What is it? Is that just where they like to get their players?
Well, Håkan Andersson's their chief scout, and he obviously is Swedish, and so so he's really familiar. I mean, he fought with Theodor Niederbach. I mean, he really wanted him. Draper really said that last night. This was a guy Håkan was all over, and he really wanted. The interesting thing, and I don't know if you caught it or not, about Elmer Soderblom, who or Blom, I guess I should say. I keep wanting to say Bloom. He was a 6th round pick who had a coming out year. He's really gifted. He's so tall that if you look at our graphic, he also can play wide receiver for the Lions because he's that gifted of an athlete. I'm not sure what position WR is, but I think that Elmer can do it all. But all kidding aside, and first of all, our crew does a great job. I mean, those guys are fantastic. They're the best. They're the best in all of hockey. But I heard this. And this came from many years ago. a high executive in the Red Wing organization told me that the reason why they draft Swedes is because they're low maintenance players. They're very coachable. Most Swedish children have to learn English in elementary school. So, there isn't that much of a language barrier. Certainly there's a cultural barrier. But he said, the way he explained it to me is that they show up, they practice, they go home. They show up, they play a game, they go home. And then we don't hear from them until we have to see them again. Now, I don't know what they're doing behind closed doors. My God, who knows? But what I do know is that they're not a problem. They're not a problem. We're not going to get phone calls in the middle of the night saying, so-and-so was, on the freeway going 180 miles an hour or whatever. That doesn't happen. That's not so they like their makeup. They're very, very coachable. And, in the Swedish hockey system, they teach them very, very well. So am I surprised that the Red Wings, have a bunch of Swedish hockey players on their roster? No. But there is another hot spot, and I know they didn't get one yesterday, but another spot to look at, which is going to be really up and coming as far as European hockey players, and that's going to be Germany. So watch out. Don't sleep on Germany. Do not sleep on Germany. And,
don't put any countries because Art will pick them all.
Yeah, I'm German and Swedish, so I was drafted by the Red Wings 3 years ago.
There you go. My last name's German. German, a little bit of Irish and Greek. I mean, I'm a really interesting mix.
You are, Art. That is a way to put it right
there. I'll say that.
What are we talking about again?
I don't know. Swedish hockey players. All right. Well, that will do it for Bet You Didn't Know today. Bet You Didn't Know is presented by PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet is an official partner of Tigers. Download the app and follow PointsBet USA on social media for more information. I know that the Red Wings social media has been super busy today, Carly, and I know you have some stuff from both sides, Tigers and Red Wings. What do you have for us today?
Okay, we're going to start off with Tigers because we've been talking a lot of Red Wings as of late. So over on the Tigers Twitter, they want to know which play is better. Okay, so they have that they're posting today. Actually, they just posted. I have to look at the time. They just posted it about 20 minutes ago, so go over there and vote. The Tigers want to know which play is better. Right on the left, we have when Tyler Alexander struck out the first 9 batters he faced in Game 1 of a doubleheader against the Cincinnati Reds, setting a Major League record for most consecutive strikeouts by a reliever, or Victor Reyes is looking at that home run robbing. So again, go vote on the Tigers Twitter. Which do you think is the better play? Moving on to some draft videos that surfaced yesterday. First, it's this video of Sam Stang when he found out he was drafted by the Red Wings and he was surrounded by his Badgers teammates at practice. Very cool moment when he got the call. You see his coach skating up to him here, bringing him the phone. And that's when he found out. Look at that by his teammates. Hockey taps all around. We're excited to have him in the Red Wings organization. Won't be straying too far away from the team colors. Look at that. They're already red and white. So welcome to Hockey Town, Sam. And then moving on to another Detroit Red Wings draft pick in Cross Hannes. Okay, we've seen this the past few years. It's called the lacrosse move or the Michigan move, which I like to name it better. Look at that. Oh, right from behind, right up top. Woo! Goal by Cross Hanna. So I would like to see that with him wearing a wing wheel sweater. That was really cool to see some highlights surfacing. So I'm very excited for the future. The past couple days have been great. We got some awesome picks coming up, but that's all I have for this mini Let's Socialize. Make sure you're sending in your questions and we will answer them later on in the show. Daniela?
That woo. That woo. That was like the mom woo. You're like, yeah, woo.
Love to see it.
Thank you, Carly. We'll be talking to you. Well, thank you. We'll be talking to you later in the show. That was great. And it's great to see that Sam got to find out about his draft pick around all of his teammates and coaches. Very, very cool to see you guys. We've still got a lot coming up in today's show. We'll hear from Dan Dickerson and Evan Woodbury to talk about the Tigers offseason. And of course, TSN draft guru Craig Button will join Art for the headliner later in the show. We're going to get into downtown Hockey Town right now. But before we do, Carly caught up with Dylan Larkin earlier this week to talk about his NHL draft memories.
Hey, Hockey Town, Carly Johnston here, joined by Dylan Larkin ahead of the NHL draft. How's it going, Dylan?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Nice to finally get to talk to you again.
Yeah, I know. It's good to see your face, I guess. And although we're still virtual, but it's good to be talking about the NHL draft.
I know, exciting things ahead, but let's talk about your draft experience first. You were drafted by your hometown team in the 2014 NHL entry draft. What was that moment like, hearing your name called by your hometown team?
It was really cool. You know what, I had been sitting there, and it was the 15th pick, and I wasn't projected to go anytime soon. But I remember looking to my dad, who was sitting next to me, and my mom, and my brother was on the other side, and I was just like, how cool would this be? And my mom was kind of like, she was very nervous. I think she was gripping my arm when Ken Holland went up to announce, and it just was pretty crazy when they said from the U.S. program. I knew there was a few of us that were going to be drafted in the first round, but you know, I just kept getting more and more excited. And when they announced my name, I was just trying not to fall going down the stairs, and you know, it was one of those moments you're so excited, you're so happy, you don't really take a second to look around and really enjoy it. You just try and get the jersey and get out of there and meet everyone. But it was a little bit of a blur, but just such a great experience, great memory.
Beautiful. What was the day like from the moment you woke up? I mean, was it an early day, or what was the process like?
You know what, it was in Philadelphia, so it was pretty cool. You know, I do remember it's a long day. The draft starts at 7:00, and you know, I didn't really do much that day. I remember just sitting around, hanging around the hotel room. Got pretty anxious around 3 or 4 o'clock. So I had a lot of family there. I think the previous couple days I was pretty busy with my agent. We were going around and doing some last minute interviews, and but that day I do remember it was slow, and my dad and I we did our own mock draft and in the room just to kill time, and did a little sightseeing in Philadelphia. But I just remember how long of a day it was, and how it seemed like it would never get there.
And you mentioned having your family there. Was it just your immediate family, or who did you get to have there to share that special moment with you?
Yeah, it was my family, and you know, we travel in a big group, so there was a lot of family and close friends. I had family drive from southern Indiana to come, and family from Toronto and Milwaukee. So it was pretty cool. It was very special, and there was probably about close to 30 people there, and some people came that I wasn't expecting. So it was a great memory, and you know, a great time after. I remember going through all the media, and takes longer than you think, going through all the stuff you have to do when you get drafted. But you know, when I came out of that, and they were all waiting for me, it was really special just to see everyone. Both my grandmas were there, and just a great moment.
Do you feel for this year's draft class a bit not really getting that experience that you had to do the draft virtually?
Yeah, absolutely. I bet it's even tougher, right? It's more anxious, more sitting at home and waiting. And you know, when you're there in Philadelphia, you get to do other things. Or it was supposed to be in Montreal this year, that, you know, you could do different things and break up the day and make it a little bit of a family trip and kind of a celebration of how far you've come and what the next phase of your life could look like. And, I do feel for those guys, but at the end of the day, you're worried about where you're getting drafted, and I'm sure at home, hopefully safely, these guys can enjoy it with the close ones and their loved ones, and figure out where they're going to be drafted.
Absolutely. An exciting and I'm sure nerve-wracking time for these kids, as you would know. Do you have any words of advice for the kids getting drafted?
No, I guess all the work is done, right? So you just sit back and enjoy, and it's pretty much out of your control, and just enjoy it with your family and friends, and use it as a little bit of a celebration of how far you've come and how the people have helped you get there. But also, you don't make the NHL from sitting at home being drafted. So, or what someone told me is it's what you do the day after the draft that matters. So.
Love it. Love it. All right, Dylan, thank you so much for catching up with me. Hopefully this offseason doesn't last much longer so we can see you and the Red Wings draft pick at Little Caesars Arena very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Carly.
Thank you, Carly and Dylan. Great to hear from Dylan Larkin and some of his draft day memories. Now we're going to get into Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light, and we've got some more Red Wings talk for you today, but focus a little bit more on free agency. Art, I want to start with going over some of the moves that the Red Wings have made already. They will not qualify Madison Bowie, Christopher N., or Brendan Perlini. We got that news today. Jimmy Howard, Justin Applicator, Jonathan Erickson, and Trevor Daley will also not be returning to the Red Wings. So we definitely have some holes to fill on the roster as of now. Free agency is tomorrow. Free agency starts. So there's going to be a busy day for the Red Wings. Let's start with the blue line. We've got some great free out there on the market, including Alex Pietrangelo and Torrey Krug. Do we have any chance of going after those guys, Art, or what do you think Steve Yzerman is going to do with the blue line tomorrow?
Well, certainly. I mean, you just mentioned two premier defensemen in the NHL, so I think, certainly Steve would like to go for them. Always a question when you look at the really high-end free agents. They've worked to become a free agent, unrestricted. They can pick and choose their teams. Do they want to come to Detroit, which is still in a rebuilding phase? Now, Pietrangelo, the scuttlebutt today, and this is going to change, tomorrow at noontime, free agency begins. So we'll see, is that he might be headed to the Boston Bruins. Now, if he heads to the Boston Bruins, another real hot rumor, innuendo, and speculation, which I love to deal in constantly, has it that perhaps Livonia's own, Michigan State's own, Torrey Krug may consider coming back to Detroit, that he may become a Red Wing. Now, I think the Red Wings would be a little bit surprised. If I'm Steve, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is good news for us, but why would Torrey Krug, who played on a very good team, has come close to winning the Stanley Cup a couple of times, why would he do that? Well, for a variety of reasons, because he probably, he's getting closer to home. He grew up a Red Wings fan, obviously. His family, every time I walk around Livonia, I'm running into another Krug. So, they're all over the place. So I'm just saying that, maybe that works. I mean, I think we have a tough time figuring that Torrey Krug would sign here because he's a premier defenseman. He's one of the best power play quarterbacks. I mean, he would significantly improve the Red Wings blue line, but especially on the power play. And Lord knows they need help on the power play. He's really, really interesting. So if you're looking for the Red Wings to go out of Steve's thing about, well, we're going to be kind of frugal, it's going to be term. I'm looking at maybe 2, maybe 3 years at the most. But, and we keep saying over and over, when Steve signs big free agents, big contracts, long-term contracts, 5, 6, 7 years perhaps, it would have to be for a really elite level player. Now, the only way that changes is that elite level player like Torrey Krug wants to come back to Detroit, wants to come here. Look, they're the free agent. They hold all the cards. All you can do is make them an offer. Just make them an offer and see what they say. Well, Torrey Krug, again, Livonia, Michigan's own, native son, played for Michigan State, has a history with Jeff Blashill. It's probably close. His relationship with Blash, they're like brothers practically. So I mean, that all kind of fits. Obviously, Krug being here, he knows what Steve Yzerman means to Red Wing fans all over the world. So that they have going for him. What will he play here? Will he accept a deal? Look, if he's willing to listen, the Red Wings are going to make him an offer. There's another defenseman, though, that I really think that they really like and they covet, and he's really young, and that's Eric Gustafsson. We know him from being a Chicago Blackhawk. The Calgary Flames traded for him at the trade deadline, but Gustafsson has all kinds of offensive potential. He's pretty young. Steve might go above the term deal that he wants. Like they would sign him, I'm pretty sure, for more than 2 years. But Gustafsson is a guy to look out. Vantanen's a good player. Tyson Barrie in Toronto. I just don't see both of those players are good. But if they don't get Krug, if Torrey Krug decides, hey, I love Detroit. Conies are my favorite all-time food, but I'm not. I got to play on a little bit better team. Even though I'm still relatively young at 28, I want to compete for a Stanley Cup, and I have those opportunities. That's legitimate. That actually makes sense. But maybe he does come to Detroit. Krug doesn't come to Detroit, and they don't get Gustafsson. And I get a feeling that Gustafsson is the guy that they really want. But TJ Brody, somebody that, obviously, he would be somebody that you'd look at. Chris Tanev in Vancouver. I mean, there are some defensemen out there, and they're going to pluck a defenseman or two. Who will that be? Krug would be the big prize. He would be the top of the mountain. The sundae with the big cherry on top is Torrey Krug. But Gustafsson might be, more legitimate. And then, of course, so that's what I look at. Krug, by this time tomorrow, we could be sitting around and the Red Wings are calling another Zoom press conference with Steve, who, for a guy who doesn't like doing a lot of media, he loves being on Zoom. Another press conference with Steve talking about Torrey Krug, being a Red Wing. Who knows? But, and it's not going to go away. It's not going away. It's not, especially now that Pietrangelo is rumored to maybe be going to Boston, where everybody thought he'd be going to Toronto. Boom, then you're looking at, Krug, and then they're going to sign Chara, and he'll cost a little bit of money, even if it's only for a year, and he's their captain. So maybe Krug's being kind of eased out of Boston. If that's the case, I don't know why, but I'm just, again, I'm rumor innuendo speculation. I'm thinking, boom, maybe Krug, as weird as it seems, maybe Krug does end up being a Red Wing.
Art, I think everyone would like to see Torrey Krug as a Red Wing, but we do have to talk about who did get some deals here too. We've got Taro Hirose received a deal, and then why am I blanking? Who was the other one that we signed today? Taro Hirose and Adam Ernie. There we go. Okay, yep. Adam Ernie. Sorry about that. So yes, two forwards did receive one-year contract extensions today, and there still is a need for some forwards. As I mentioned, we've got Justin Applicator, Brendan Perlini, who were not being qualified, and Christopher N as well. So let's talk about free agency in that aspect, and I'll let you talk about goalies as well, because we know that there's probably going to be a move with some goaltender. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we know the Red Wings need one. So go forwards first and then go goaltending.
Well, forwards, I am not sure if there are any forwards that Steve's going to go after. I mean, there could be. I guess the most intriguing name on the list, although he just traded him, would be Andreas Athanasiou, who Ken Holland didn't qualify. So he's an unrestricted free agent. Obviously, the guys in the room like him. And he's really tight with the BT Express. Big Tony Mantha. Anthony Mantha and he are very, very tight friends, but you don't make roster decisions based on friendships. You just don't. If you do, then your team's not very good. I mean, Athanasiou is intriguing. I know Red Wing fans keep bringing it up to me. Do you think Andreas is coming back? I do not think so. I think AA will, he'll get a team. He has way too much talent, way too much potential. He's a 30-goal scorer in this league. Somebody is going to sign Andreas Athanasiou. The guy I don't understand why Anthony Duclair, who all he does is seem to score goals, and maybe he's a little bit streaky, but he would be a guy that maybe is intriguing to the Red Wings to a certain degree. Dominic Cahoon, another guy. Here's a guy that has potential. I mean, we're talking about young men here. They're only like 25 years old. We're talking about 18-year-olds. By 25, it's like, oh, throw them on the scrap heap. Are you kidding me? They got a lot of hockey left in them. So. But a guy that I really intrigued about, there's a couple. Nick Cousins from Vegas, but also Carter Verhagen, who was not qualified by Tampa. He's a center. I know that he's been traded a couple of times. Toronto, the Islanders, teams like that. He was traded to Tampa. He doesn't have outstanding statistics, but he's a plus player, but he played on a good Tampa team. So that would be maybe somebody like that. I think, maybe to shore up that center position. Obviously, the Red Wings need help at center, although I do think Robbie Fabre is going to get a legitimate shot at being that second-line center this year. So those are the guys that I would probably look at. I mean, all of them are pretty good. Have potential. Most of them were signed to kind of long-term deals, and it didn't work out, so they're cutting bait. But a lot of it has to do with the salary cap being kind of stagnant and being in these times. There's so many teams that are up against the ceiling and need cap relief. So there's a lot of good players that are available because they couldn't get qualified. I'm sure Steve right now is poring over that list and thinking, wow, because no one really knew how it was going to play out. Well, it could really benefit a team like the Red Wings. Now, getting the goaltending, just hot off the press, Daniela, and this isn't rumor, innuendo, or speculation, which I love. Ante Khudobin, the guy from Dallas, the goaltender for Dallas, is testing the free agent market. Red Wings are very familiar with him. He was in Boston for a lot, so Khudobin could be available. Now, again, will he come to Detroit? Because I think Detroit would try to sign him. Braden Holtby, he's going to go to a different team. We hear, how about Corey Crawford? We hear Joe Sakic in Colorado's all over Corey Crawford. He wants Corey Crawford. Colorado's in a little bit better position than Detroit. But don't worry, Avalanche. Detroit's coming after you, and they will dominate you again. But with that said, I think the guy, and I've always said this, that I think they're going to end up getting is Thomas Greiss. I really think it's going to be Thomas Greiss. Now, Jacob Markstrom is also an interesting case, though, as well. I think that's a guy, is he Swedish, by the way? Is he? I don't know. But Jacob Markstrom could be a guy that, is going to get a lot of play. There's a lot of teams that are chomping at the bit to get to him. Now, in order for Detroit to sign somebody like that, Jacob Markstrom, and Robin Leonard, he just signed a 5-year deal with Vegas, so he's definitely off the market. But with that said, I really think that, again, does Jacob Markstrom want to come to a team that is in a rebuild? Thomas Greiss is a little bit different. He played on the Islanders when they were rebuilding constantly. They're starting to get good, but what Thomas Greiss gives you, it gives you a guy that is more than capable of playing 30, 35, maybe 40 games in the NHL to give Jonathan Bernier a little bit of a break. I think that would be a good, happy marriage. It would be a short-term kind of thing. Bernier's contract expires at the end of next season. Does Steve bring him back? I think a lot of it depends on how John Bernier performs. But Thomas Greiss is the guy that I think that the Red Wings are going to end up signing tomorrow. I have no inside information. Okay.
I've got one more name for you. Malcolm Subban. What do you think?
Well, there is an intriguing name too. Actually, I have him written down on my list, but I couldn't read my notes. I'm thinking to myself as I'm rattling on here, who did I write down? It is Malcolm Subban. I think that he would obviously be an intriguing pick. He was a high pick. He has a lot of upside, and here's a fella that has been given some opportunities, but as we know, and this is why the goaltending position is so difficult to predict. Usually, goaltenders were like left-handed pitchers, starting pitchers in baseball. They take longer. Lefty takes longer to develop. Well, they look at goaltenders for the most part, but there are some guys like Carter Hart in Philadelphia who have come in at a very young age and have performed very, very well. So I guess it really comes down to, do you believe that Malcolm Subban just needs an opportunity and a chance where he comes in, but he's been in this position before with other clubs, and that you say to him, okay, Jonathan Bernier, definitive number one. We got to go with Big John. Big John Bernier is our guy, but we need a capable backup because, and remember, this is the thing. We don't know what the schedule is going to look like, but if they start in January, they want to get in 82 games. There's going to be a lot of back-to-backs. You're going to need a backup goaltender. I mean, you're going to need almost, my old expression, 1A and 1B. Well, trust me, you're going to need that even if you have, Vasilevsky, who is kind of a freak of nature, but he's going to need to be spelled a couple of times too. You just can't play him all, 70 games, especially if there's a lot of back-to-back. So this is a big thing. I would say, as much as Steve would like, if Torrey Krug wants to come here, buddy, welcome. I'm extending my hand to you right now, Torrey. I'm extending my hand to you. Come back to Livonia. It's sunny today. But with all that said,
I think it's locked. I think it's locked now.
Torrey, hey, if Torrey Krug becomes a Red Wing during this free agency period, you're welcome, Detroit. But with that said, I really do think that, it's such a goaltending is such a big, huge, key position. It's the most important position on the ice, especially with a compact schedule. I really think that. And Steve, don't worry about Mantha or Bertuzzi, whatever they're going to get, they're going to get. Steve's not worried. He says we're going to sign him. Boom, boom, boom. So I do think, I don't know if he's concerned about it, but I would, if I were him, except if Torrey Krug is involved, I would probably, without question, want to solidify my goaltending right now. That's what I
didn't expect that to be the end.
Yes. Yeah, well, they're telling me, shut up. So I would try to go for goaltender first. That's what I would do, unless Krug is here.
All right. Okay, there we go. Art on his free agency predictions. That was quite the predictions, Art. You had a lot of them, but it was good. That was good. But that does it for Downtown Hockey Town today. Downtown Hockey Town is presented by Labatt Blue Light. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Now, to wrap this up, we had some Dylan Larkin draft day memories, and Carly was also joined by Anthony Mantha earlier this week.
Hey, Red Wings fans, Carly Johnston here with Anthony Mantha, head of the NHL draft. How's it going, Anthony?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Nice to finally talk to you again.
Seriously, it's been a minute.
I know. All right, so I want to talk to you about the day you were drafted back in 2013, 7 years ago. Can you believe it?
Lucky 7.
All right. So 2013, you were drafted by the Detroit Red Wings. What was running through your head when you heard Kenny Holland call your name at pick 20?
Gosh, I think the whole draft was just a blur, kind of blacked out, You're hoping every pick to hear out your name, and then Kenny finally said it, and it was just a rush of emotions through the body with the family. So, can't describe it.
Okay, so I understand I know your family and maybe some close friends took a bus, correct me if I'm wrong, from Val-d'Or, Quebec to New York, where you were staying for the trip. What was that whole experience like?
It was hard to set up, but it was awesome. It was basically family and friends and my billet family from Val-d'Or. They hopped onto the bus, drove down to Montreal, which is about 7 hours, picked us up. So when I say us, I say me, my close family, my close friends, everyone that lives in the Montreal area. And so we were about 45 to 50 people on that bus and made our way up to New York, which was about 7 or 8 hours, if my memory is good.
That is a hike. Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand your grandfather was at the draft and he played for the Red Wings at one point in his career. How special was it that you got drafted by a team that he had played for?
It was awesome. Actually, back in the days, he was telling me that they didn't have any draft. So basically, when I got drafted was just kind of his draft in a sense, meaning like he just enjoyed the whole day and the whole experience that came along with it.
Living through you a bit, I guess.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay. Do you feel for this year's draft class, they don't exactly get that experience that you're getting with having to do the draft remotely?
Obviously, but I mean, there's nothing we can do. I worked out with Lafreniere last summer, so for him it was kind of a bummer, you know, like all the hopes are around him right now, and obviously he would have loved to hear his name. All the kids would have loved to hear their names. So don't get me wrong, but with all the hopes around Lafreniere, he was just hoping for a big day.
Right. I understand that. Do you have any words of advice for the kids getting drafted?
Gosh, I mean, this year is obviously completely different, but if not, it's just to enjoy the experience. For me personally, it was the best day in my career. There's nothing that compares to it, except maybe the first goal, but we could argue about that one.
All right, beautiful. Anthony, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me. I can't wait to see you at Little Caesars Arena, hopefully soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carly and Anthony Mantha, aka the BT Express. Now, you guys, we're going to transition into Brush Street Beat presented by McLaren Healthcare. And today, I'm actually going to toss it over to Dan Dickerson to talk some Tigers baseball. He was joined by Evan Woodbury of MLive.
And joining us now is fine beat writer for MLive.com, Evan Woodbury, who's been covering the Tigers for many years. Evan, first of all, great to see you without a mask on.
I know. We're saying it's been since March. It's been, I guess, 7 months. It feels like it's been about 7 years or so, though.
There's so much to talk about. I thought before we get into the to-do list for Al Avila this offseason, just kind of your thoughts on what we just watched, this strange 60-game season. I loved your lead the other day. It's like, it's report card time. Everybody gets an incomplete. See you next spring. That seemed about right for this year. What did we learn about some of these players? What were maybe some of the best things, if anything, to come out of a 60-game season, which I have to tell you was so different from 162. It was gone in the blink of an eye.
It really was, and it makes you realize how long that 162-game season is. When you go through 60, and 60 is a grind too, but it's barely you know, like you said, barely the blink of an eye in a 162-game season. So on the one hand, you have to say, well, you don't want to draw too many sweeping conclusions, either good or bad, from such a short season. On the other hand, you know, baseball is about opportunity, and players often only get a short time to either seize their opportunity or miss their opportunity. And we saw a couple players that seized it without a doubt in this short season. Obviously, Willie Castro in a 162-game season, yes. Would he come back to earth? Absolutely. But that doesn't change the fact that he took advantage of his opportunity, was phenomenal, was hitting at one point probably as well as just about anybody in all of baseball. And he's taken his opportunity, and he's earned another shot in 2021, whether it's at shortstop or second base or somewhere else. And then I think the other one that jumps out to me more than anything else is Jeimer Candelario. We forget, it was only a few months ago, his very future in the organization was a matter of some debate. And he's gone from that to a point where he's really solidified himself, had a phenomenal year, both offensively and defensively. And he's another guy that took advantage of the opportunity in this shortened season.
Let's talk about Willie Castro real quick. We'll dive into some of the other guys on this roster a little bit later. But, I mean, that is such a key position and such a key decision for this franchise. I think what everybody talks about is his defense. And we know he was like, I think, -6, -7 defensive runs saved. But more than a few have made the point, there have been other shortstops who turned into pretty good everyday shortstops who came up and were weak defensively at short to begin with, and then tighten things up. And now, because of their offense, really are plus at shortstop, whether it's Tim Anderson, Marcus Semien, Lloyd McClendon mentioned his old teammate, Jay Bell. Does Willie Castro, do you think, have the tools to play shortstop every day?
I think he does. And I think, more importantly, I think the Tigers think that he does. And I think he's going to get that opportunity. Although Al Avila didn't come out and say that directly, I think that's the impression that most people have got, that they want to give him every opportunity to be that everyday shortstop. And then maybe if that doesn't work out and his bat is still still strong, then they find another spot for him. But they feel like he has the athleticism to play just about anywhere, and I think getting that first shot at shortstop will make sense. And I think not just this year, but even going back to last year, yes, there have been some growing pains defensively, but there were also times when he looked like a very competent shortstop. And if you eliminate some of those errors, some of the throwing mistakes, some of the little things that are correctable, I think the thought is that he can be a very, very solid everyday shortstop. And this may be the time to give him that opportunity. Maybe if
Right.
Next year you're saying, well, we're gunning for the World Series, maybe you don't give him that opportunity. Maybe you go sign a veteran, and maybe you find another place for Willie. But I think in the situation the Tigers are right now, it probably makes sense to give him the shot, because if that works out, you've got a guy who's just 22, 23 years old, really young, and with a really bright future ahead of him.
It seems like, Evan, there are two big issues going into the offseason right at the top of the list for Al Avila before we even talk about how to reshape this roster. First is the managerial search. The most significant thing, or certainly one of the most significant things that come out of his Zoom conference the other day, was that Alex Cora and AJ Hinch are both on his list. That seemed very significant. How significant did it seem to you? Because it seems like, those are two top candidates if they're on his list.
Yeah, I think you have to, at the very least, consider them. And so I think in that sense, it's smart that the Tigers are considering them. Because I described it this way when I was talking to a friend, is someone is going to hire them. Now, we don't know whether it's going to be this offseason or maybe the next offseason, but somebody is going to give them another chance. And they're probably, given their track record, there's a good chance they're going to take advantage of it. So I think for the Tigers to rule that out would be foolhardy at this point. And I think it makes sense to say if they're going to get another chance in baseball, why not us, given the track record and what they've done in previous stops. In the big picture, I think it'll be really interesting because, when I covered football, one hire was always a reaction to the last hire. So if you hired a coach from a defensive background, you always went and hired the next coach from an offensive background, and back and forth. From the Tigers' perspective, they've gone from Brad Ausmus, who was almost straight from his playing career with very little experience, to Ron Gardenhire, who had tons of experience as a coach and manager in the big leagues. So do they go back to a younger manager, or do they try to find maybe somebody that's a little bit in between? And I think AJ Hinch and Cora would both be good examples of someone who, is younger, has an analytic background, well respected in that realm, but also has some really solid managerial experience at the big league level.
You don't often see it, but we've seen it with guys like Don Cooper and Brent Strom, I think, has also survived managerial changes and stayed on as a pitching coach. And I know what the numbers say, Evan, and you certainly detailed it pretty well in terms of the struggles the pitching staff had. But it does seem like Rick Anderson does have a unique ability to teach, to observe, to understand how to correct things. Can Rick Anderson survive a managerial change? Can he be one of those few who actually does?
I think it's possible. It depends. We saw when Ron Gardenhire came in here, obviously Anderson had been his pitching coach for a long time. They went to an outside candidate that didn't really work out initially, and Anderson eventually moved from bullpen back to a pitching coach. So you do see that managers, especially veteran managers, do have their preferences of guys that they've worked with before. So in that sense, it'll probably depend a lot on who they hire. Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right about Rick Anderson. By the time a pitcher gets to the big leagues, they've had a dozen pitching coaches in their lives. And so it doesn't make sense to scrap everything and say, okay, now I'm the guru. Everyone else that came before me is wrong, and here's what I'm going to tell you to do. It's really more of a mental game and making sure that a pitcher has the confidence to compete at the big league level. And I think there's very few pitching coaches that I've seen that are better than Rick Anderson as far as making sure that his pitchers are confident, giving them the tools they need to succeed, and kind of stepping out of the way after that, not trying to necessarily be a guru or solve everything for them, but just give them the tools that they already have to go out and do their best.
Absolutely. The other big issue, it seems like going into the offseason, and Al Avila touched on this again the other day, is how do you figure out what the workloads are going to be for your young pitchers? It does seem like history tells us, guys coming back from injury or Tommy John, that the guys who've been at 160, 180 innings can probably approach that next year. But the guys who are still building their arm strength and workloads, the Mizes, Skubals, Manning Faedos of the world, not so much. And nobody really knows what that number is. Teams have to cover roughly 1,500 innings in a 162 game season. And Alavila said this really leads to uncertainty about, can you actually have a 162 game season when you're talking about maybe not having enough arms, given there were no minor leagues last year, to cover the innings that you're going to need to cover?
Oh, it's going to be really, really interesting or strange to see how it unfolds. And, I guess the good news is it's not just a Tigers issue. It's going to be a league-wide issue no matter what happens, because there are going to be a lot of teams that are asking the same questions and having the same challenges next year. But I think it from the perspective of the Tigers' young pitchers, maybe in a normal season, there's a case to be made for starting a Casey Mize or a Tarek Skubal in Toledo, letting them get a few starts under their belt before bringing them back up to Detroit, maybe get some more success in Toledo, work on some things that they couldn't necessarily work on in Detroit. But next year, with presumably under a fairly strict innings limit for both of them, do you want to waste those innings in Toledo, or do you want to get them up to Detroit and have them get that major league experience before you presumably have to shut them down for the year at some point during the summer, or at least strictly limit their workload at some point in the summer? So these are the questions. There's no really right or wrong answer at this point, but these are the things they're going to have to wrestle with. And I think while every team is going to have to wrestle with them, for teams that have a lot of young pitching like the Tigers, or teams that have pitchers coming off of injuries like the Tigers, it's going to be a much more difficult debate.
Yeah, it really is setting up for all general managers, for Al Avila, for the other 29, one of the trickiest, difficult to navigate off seasons with all the uncertainty, not just about innings limits, but finances and length of schedule and fans in the stands. It's one of the trickiest we will ever see.
Yeah, right now, teams are trying to map out their offseason plans, but they don't really know. Presumably, a lot of teams don't even know what their budget is going to look like, because if their budget may be one thing, if it's 162 game seasons with full attendance, full normal capacity at stands, it may be another thing if it's 50% capacity. It may be another thing if it's 0% capacity in the stands. And then there's obviously the issue of how long the season will be. Will there be any changes to player compensation? These are things we all don't know right now. And I think it's going to really make this a weird free agent season, because, we kind of, everybody had circled this offseason as the time when the Tigers would spend more. Jordan Zimmerman is coming off the books. There's some other obligations that are coming off the books. Really, you have Miguel Cabrera and then the arbitration eligible players, and that's the extent of the financial commitments for the Tigers for next year. But all that said, there's so much uncertainty into this free agent market. No one really knows what will happen. I'm not even sure that the GMs know what will happen at this point, just because until they get some of those questions answered, until their owners get some of those questions answered, it's going to be real hard to project revenue going into 2021.
Let's ask about a couple of the pitchers that we did see before we ask about maybe some free agents that Tigers might target. Mize and Skubal, we know what the ERAs were. It does seem like Skubal was by far the better of the two in terms of his performance this year and what he did. Casey Mize, we saw that great first start, and then he really had some struggles after that. What do you think the Tigers figured out about both Skubal and Mize, given all the attention they were given when they came up?
I think any experience is good experience, and I think Casey Mize will take a lot from and Tarek Skubal will take a lot from what they got this year. In the big picture with Casey Mize, I think everyone had higher hopes. I think he had higher hopes for how things would go. But at the end of the day, he only threw, I think, 28 innings, and which is just, it's barely scratching the surface. It's a month of normal starts in a normal season. So it would barely go noticed in a 162 game season, but because he was making his debut, because it was a shortened season, I think everything was scrutinized more. I think, as he has the chance to work some things out, as he has a chance to learn from what he's done this year, I think there are better things ahead. And I think when everything is clicking for him, as we've seen in a few of those games, there's no doubt he can be an effective major league pitcher. And, there are so many examples as you turn on the playoffs right now of pitchers who maybe were a little bit shaky in their debut, who maybe even took a year or two or even 3 years to really settle into being quality top-notch starters in the big leagues. And obviously, hopefully it won't take Casey Mize 3 years, but 28 innings is a little bit too early to draw any major conclusions for his ultimate success.
All right, as you think about reshaping the roster, we're going to pretend there's no uncertainty and that we have at least a feel for it's going to be 162. There's going to be normal TV revenue. There's going to be at least some fans in the stands. What free agents, like you said, the payroll has dropped. You don't have the Zimmerman obligation or the Fielder obligation anymore. Just give Tigers fans a feel for some free agents out there that might be a good fit. I guess DJ LeMahieu's on the top of everybody's list because he's a local boy. He is a free agent, and he's probably going to command a ton of money. But still, he's DJ LeMahieu.
Right. And I think, especially at this point in the rebuilding process where you're kind of emerging from it, when you have money to spend, I would still be cautious about multi-year contracts. That said, I think I would love to see them invest in some of the best 1 or 2 year players that they could find, or even a player that's maybe looking for a bounce back contract. Yeah. You look at how Marcell Osuna is doing with the Braves right now, and obviously he was a special situation, but he was also a guy that they got on a 1 year deal. He was hoping to have a phenomenal season and then play that off and get a multi-year deal in his next contract. I think the closest guy that might come to that in this free agent market is Jock Peterson, just because he's had kind of a down year. He could potentially maybe go for a short-term contract now, hoping to parlay that into a multi-year deal later on. I would look for creative opportunities like that. Corner outfielder to me would be number one on the list, just to look for a bat there where you've kind of had a hole for a couple of years. That would be high on the list. The middle infield is a question mark just because we don't know for 100% what their plans are for Willie Castro or for Nico Goodrum for that matter. But I would love to see them consider at least bringing Jonathan Scope back, especially if they could get him on a relatively good deal. I think everybody loved him. I think he injected some power in the lineup. He played great defense at second base. And, beyond that, I think for me, the ideal scenario would be to move back Jeimer Candelario to third base, at least temporarily, at least for part of the season. And to do that, you really need a better solution at first base. And, not necessarily doesn't have to be CJ Cron, but someone like him who, is looking for an opportunity to play every day, who injects some power into the lineup, who plays solid defense, but again, on a 1 year deal. So I know that sounds kind of like what they did last season, but hopefully maybe with a little bit more ambitious targets in your sight, especially at the corner outfielder, where I think that could really make a pretty impactful offensive upgrade overnight.
Yeah, Jock Peterson could really upgrade the offense, it seems like, from that left side especially. Evan, it's so good to see you. Love your insight. I love your writing, and it's hopefully going to be a busy off season. Who knows? I mean, like we said, uncertainty, I guess, is the word of the day. But first and foremost, we'll probably see a manager in the next month or so.
Yeah, and if knock on wood, I'm already got February circled to be back in Lakeland, and let's hope everything is as normal as it possibly can be.
All right, Evan. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Another big thank you to Dan and Evan for giving us some insight into what the Tigers offseason might look like. And also a big thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Brush Street Beat right here on the Word on Woodward. Before we get into the headliner with TSN draft guru Craig Button. You got to tell you guys, he's got a lot of information. It's a really good interview, but I also have to remind you about our Miller Lite contest. This is your last chance to enter. You've got a couple of days. The Detroit Tigers and Miller Lite are teaming up to give our fans the chance to win autographed Detroit Tigers merchandise and some great Miller Lite gear. Enter online to win one of 72 Miller Lite home run kits from now until October 12th, which is Tuesday. So make sure you guys get on that. And now, without further ado, let's give it to Art and Craig Button.
Thank you, Danielle. It is time for the headliner presented by Miller Lite, and let's bring in our guest, and we're really always eager to talk to him. Man that I not only admire, I call him friend, TSN scouting director, former NHL general manager, former chief scout, you name it. What hasn't he done in this league? Craig Button joins us. Craig, thanks for being on the headliner today.
My pleasure, friend, and you are a friend.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to go off on a tangent about Michigan football, so we're going to save that for another time because we both can do that. I'm joking around here, but it seems like the last pick in the NHL draft was just made like 5 minutes ago. Your overall thoughts about how it was pulled off? I mean, really, it was extraordinary since they had to go virtually all over the world to try to coordinate this.
Brilliant is the word I would use. And, we know what the challenges were and unprecedented times, lead to creative and imaginative solutions and the technical people, but everybody involved from the NHL, it's been brilliant. And I think that leadership really, shows its true form in situations like this. Here's what we're confronted with. What are the potential solutions that we can come up with? And doing the draft, it was seamless. And people might say, "Oh, the 2nd to 7th round was longer." Well, it should be expected to be longer. It was very different, but it was tremendous. It was tremendous for the young players. It was tremendous for the teams, the agents that really helped their players through all this to really ensure that the fans could get a really good sense of not only what the player was, but get a sense of who he is and, get a glimpse inside the homes of those first-round draft picks.
With that said, Steve Yzerman has preached patience for Red Wing fans. He wants to acquire picks. Yesterday, Steve makes 4 deals, and the Red Wings, who had 10 picks going into the draft, end up getting 12. Maybe an overall assessment of what you think Detroit did over the last 2 days in the NHL entry draft.
Well, Steve Yzerman, both as a player and now in his present role as a general manager, he knows what winning teams look like. He knows what is necessary to be a successful team that competes for a championship. And the Tampa Bay Lightning that just won the Stanley Cup have his fingerprints all over it. So, and he also understands what's lacking. And much like when he went to Tampa Bay, it might be a little bit different because they had Stamkos and Hedman already in the fold. But you need to draft players that are going to be significant difference makers. You need high quality players at important positions. And Steve knows that, and he knows it's not just one player that's going to put you over the top. He knows it's going to be a number of players, but you have to start the process. And everybody would like as many first-round draft picks as possible, but it's about taking advantage of not only your scouting prowess, it's also taking advantage of understanding that it's going to take some time. So what types of these players can really emerge in the years to come? And, go look at Braden Point. I mean, there's a perfect example. Steve Yzerman wasn't fussed about a smaller centerman. They were going to let him develop, and we'll see where he goes. And Andre Vasilevsky takes him at 19. He's not worried about those things. He wants skill, and he wants competitiveness and quality. They certainly got that in Lucas Raymond. I mean, the guy's a brilliant player. He reminds me a lot of Mitch Marner, and Mitch Marner's been a top player since he entered the league and certainly will remain there. But you go down the list, and, Theodor Niederbach, a really good centerman in Sweden, skilled, and you could probably even make a comparison to Braden Point, not maybe in style, but in stature and where he's at, that he's going to need some time. To me, you look at William Hollander. He's a brilliant skating defenseman. He needs some time. I was surprised he wasn't drafted in the first round, so they get him right at the beginning of the second round. Amo Vero, another really good, smart defenseman. He's going to need some time. They get a goaltender, Jan Bednar. Ability-wise, terrific. He needs to work on his technical part. He's got to learn how to be a goaltender. And, you go all the way through that, and you try to add players that have been difference makers at their levels, and the guys I just mentioned have been. Now you got to develop them to do the same thing at the National League level. I think that they have the qualities in place, and I think one of the biggest things for the Red Wings, and from my understanding, I don't have this on inside information, but I heard that when they were considering drafting Keenan Draper, they really wanted to make sure that the father was solid.
Really? Yeah, and I think he was. I didn't think you needed to really twist his arm too much in the virtual draft room that the Red Wings had going on. I don't think they were. I don't think Steve was reaching into the screen. And are you sure about this, Drapes? You bring up an interesting point with Keenan Draper. Obviously, he born in Detroit. grew up here, is 6'1", which, even Drapes is surprised by that. How could my son be 6'1" when, I'm like 5'9", maybe 5'10" at the most? But that was interesting. And I think that there were a lot of good stories coming out of this draft, but certainly Chris Draper saying his own son's name after coaching him throughout his whole amateur career with Little Caesars was really pretty cool. And, he's kind of, and Steve and Chris both went out of their way and said, listen, he's earned the right to be drafted. This wasn't just some sort of, hey, it's a 7th round, let's just knock it off and I'm going to draft my kid. Chris Draper believes that Keenan Draper is improving and has a shot at someday maybe making the NHL.
Listen, Chris Draper is quality in every sense of the word. And, you look at it, all he wants to do is help the Red Wings be the best he can. And who knows his son better than he does? And the one thing I'll say about Chris is level-headed. He's got good perspective on things. And there's no way that he would be selecting any player that he doesn't feel can help the Detroit Red Wings. I went through a very similar thing in Dallas. We drafted Bob Gainey's son. We drafted Steven in the 3rd round. And, we spent a lot of time talking to Steven, talking to Bob. What did it mean? How do you feel about this? And I'll never forget sitting down with Bob and Steven. And, Steven was a little bit, he was nervous. He was. And am I getting drafted because of my dad? And we really tried to assure Steven, no, it wasn't because of that. We like you. We like your potential. And Bob turned to Steven and he said, I trust these guys to draft players that are going to help our team. And I trust their assessments and their evaluations and what they tell me. And he turned to him and he said, I think you should trust them. And we selected them.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's a very, very good story. I mean that, and at the end of the day, as great as it's, we all have a passion for hockey. We all love the sport. I've been a lifelong fan, certainly, but at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses and building your team to compete for that Stanley Cup. So you have to put sometimes your own personal emotions aside and do what you think is best for the team, for the organization. And and I haven't met a hockey man that does not think that way when it's time to make those crucial decisions for your team. I want to go back to Lucas Raymond because I'm kind of curious. Because I'm curious, were you surprised Detroit went that way, especially with Drysdale being there or Sanderson? I was all on the Drysdale train for a long, long time, but then I started to switch. I thought it might be Alexander Holtz because I thought Detroit would go for a pure goal scorer because they do need goal scoring. They need players to complement Anthony Mantha, who has a great shot, Philip Zadina, who has a great shot, but guys who think almost shoot first. Holtz is one of those players. But it seems that where Steve's at right now, where he thinks I need an elite level player that can play a complete game, and I think that's what they got in Lucas Raymond.
Well, Art, I can't disagree with anything you just expressed about Lucas. And here's what I'm going to tell you about Lucas. He's able to play the game at a fast pace. He's able to slow it down. He's able to play in tight quarters. He's so elusive. And, don't ever sleep on a shot. He's got a sneaky good shot that people are going to find out isn't so sneaky. At the U18 championship gold medal game in April of 2019, Sweden won the gold medal. Lucas Raymond, who was a year younger than everybody in that tournament, scored 3 goals, including the golden goal. Do you know who he scored those 3 goals against? Yaroslav Askarov. So It wasn't like he. So I've watched Lucas for a long time, and yeah, we look at him and say he's a playmaker, and he is. He's a superb playmaker, but his mind is outstanding. He's got great hockey sense, and so when he sees an opportunity to shoot, he will, and he'll score. And that's what I mean about the sneaky shot, because he's so elusive and he's so good at deception and fakes that he can open up things and open up opportunities to make that play or to finish it with a shot. He's a superb player. And what I would say to you, Art, about Lucas, like, we get zeroed in on this player and that player would fit. Lucas Raymond fits for the Detroit Red Wings because they don't have that type of player. Now they have that type of player. Now they can go look for other types of players.
Craig, first of all, I knew it was Askarov, but I'm such a big Askarov fan. I just couldn't admit that Lucas Raymond scored a hat trick against them in a gold medal game. In a gold medal game, you've always told me, and I always love this. You say, regardless of where you're at in the draft, what pick or what round, wherever, that if you see a player and you like this player, you just take him, regardless of what people are telling you or what the conventional wisdom says. And I look at Theodore Niederbach, who missed an entire season. And Steve said something yesterday, and I thought, boy, this is Craig Button. He sounds just like Craig Button. Steve said, he was injured. I can't tell you how many times you look at an injured player and you say, and then maybe you pass on him. Somebody else drafts him, and then he becomes a star in the league. I mean, that you should not, injuries, certainly you have to be concerned about them, but they're not a factor. Theodore Niederbach, and I know you've touched upon him a little bit, and I hate this word, but I'm a media guy. Steal of the draft. This could be a guy that could really elevate and really be someday a big impact player for the Red Wings.
Art, when I said that at that particular point in the draft, and like saying that he has attributes like Braden Point in terms of being, he needs time, but he's creative and he's smart and he's a playmaker and he's competitive. And, you go through the injuries. Now it's not just growing. You got to recover from that injury. So that puts you into a different development framework. But when you have a player, and Håkan Andersson knows him like the back of his hand,
right?
How hard he works, what type of initiative he has to go through these things. But on the ice, he has those qualities that just scream he's going to be a lot better in time. And that's what you want to do. Again, how do you find the William Wallanders and the Theodore Niederbachs and the Emil Veros, just to name a few, Jan Bednar? Well, if they had demonstrated everything that says that they have these high qualities and they can be that, they'd go a lot earlier in the draft. So that's where, you're mining the gems. Now you got to polish them up. You got to be patient with the process. But Theodore is exactly that type of player that in a few years' time you start going, oh boy, how did they get him there? How did they? And we're going to hear it. It happens every single draft.
Right, and and let's be honest, Steve has been one of those GMs that's been able. You kind of shake your head and go, wow, how did they do it? I mean, Kucherov was not a first-round pick, and you almost shake your head now and think, how could that happen? But things like that do happen. Craig, unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Hey, Art, I got to tell you this about Kucherov. At the time, I shook my head. He dominated the U18 tournament. Two reasons that Nikita Kucherov went in the second round, late in the second round. Oh, the Russian factor, another BS story. Don't even buy any of that stuff. And he wasn't big. Oh. Go look at the scoring. I think he had 21 or 22 points in 7 games at the U18. He dominated.
Right. Well, I talked that over. I mean, the Red Wings passed on him 3 different times or 4, whatever it was. It was an extraordinary number that Detroit's name kept coming up, and Kucherov somehow wasn't mentioned. I have to ask you very, very quickly. And I know that I know we're really busy here today, and I know you're the hardest working man in the world, really. But tomorrow, unrestricted free agency starts. Do you expect it just to be a free-for-all right now? Because, again, we're in unprecedented times. How do you see that playing out?
Well, number one, there's going to be there's a lot of players. We're seeing players not get qualifying offers, so we're seeing some younger players that are hitting the market, and that has to do because of the financial scenario in the league, the uncertainty around when the season starts, the flat cap revenues and everything that goes with it. I read a quote this week from a general manager where he said, don't I think it was Mark Bergevin. So it was Mark Bergevin. He said, "What we're expecting all these moves and trades and everything, but there's too much money in the marketplace, and teams don't have money. So when you have that, and everybody's, he said, people are trying to get rid of money. There's not too much money in the marketplace, but money's trying. So now you're trying to reduce payrolls. You're trying to understand how you're going to proceed with the uncertainty, and now the market's getting flushed with players with contracts. Can you afford them? What is affordable? Right. So, I think in certain cases there's going to be that flurry, but I think it might end up being a little bit like Major League Baseball free agency, where we might see a longer time frame on a number of players. Number one, because teams are uncertain because of when the season starts, but also because of the financial complications of the pandemic and the uncertainty surrounding that, which is every bit as significant.
Right. Well, Steve says that the Red Wings probably are still in a position to be somewhat frugal with term, although they certainly do have the money. So we'll see how that plays out tomorrow. Craig Button, unfortunately, we have run out of time. You're simply the best, Craig. You just are. In every single way, just as a person, your stuff. We always enjoy having you. You know that. I could talk to you forever, and I know they keep telling me wrap it up here, but I want to keep going on, but we can't. Thanks for joining us today on the Headliner, and continued success, and keep churning it out, Craig, because you do it the best. Thank you. That'll do it for this edition of the Headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite. It is the original light beer, only 96 calories. It is delicious, and it's also available for delivery. Daniela, Craig Button, simply.
Yes, Art, that was a great interview with Craig Button and presented by Miller Lite, of course. And his insight into the draft and everything that he has to say, it's awesome. Great interview, Art. I really enjoyed hearing from Craig. And now, you guys, we're going to get into Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. And of course, for Let's Socialize, we have to bring back Carly Johnston, who has been all over social media looking for your questions and comments. Carly, what do you have for us today?
That is right, Daniela. All right, first question we have up for Art. One of the fans wanted to know, will the loaned players playing over in Sweden be there for the entire NHL season? That question is from Red Wings Today.
I think, according to, based on what Steve says, it does appear that maybe the guys that are playing in Sweden will be there for the entire Swedish Hockey League season. Now, usually, depending on how it plays out, what'll happen is that the Swedish Hockey League season could end, and there could still be an AHL season and some playoffs going on. And if Grand Rapids qualifies for it, maybe they come right back here. So all the leagues are different, but I know in Sweden, they would rather not sign North American players or NHL caliber players, have them there for a couple of months, and then go back to North America. They would much rather, if that's going to be the case, they would much rather develop their own young talent, players that they already have in their system back in Sweden. So I think there's a distinct possibility that the Red Wings, and we know that Veleno is in Malmo, and Mo Seider actually cleared today. He's playing for, I think it's Rogel. And so maybe they are going to be there for the whole year if that's what's best for the development. I mean, we know there's going to be an NHL season, and maybe they expand the rosters, and Steve would like to bring these guys over. But I think right now where they're at in development, they just need to play hockey. They haven't played a lot of hockey. Veleno's been off the ice for months. It's time to get them back and get them playing. This might be the best situation for the development. Short term, it might hurt the Red Wings because you'd like to see them on the roster and we'd like to see them play. But long term, and the Swedish Hockey League, third best league in the world, right behind the American League 2 and the NHL, obviously number 1. So there's a distinct possibility that's going to happen.
I do like it. I feel like the Red Wings organization is all about developing their players. So We'll hope to see Sider and Veleno back in the Red Wings organization for this next season, but we'll see. Time will tell. Daniela, we have a second question for you from one of the fans. Are we bringing back Mantha and Bertuzzi? We haven't quite heard any contract signings from the two of those guys. That is from Daniel Olsch.
Yes, we are bringing back Mantha and Bertuzzi. I think Steve Eiserman in his press conferences, he had one earlier in the summer. We talked about it before the draft, and last night even he mentioned it briefly. Deals are going to be in front of Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi by midnight tonight, like they have to be. Obviously, they have some time to negotiate those deals, but they want to bring Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi back. Those are the core players on this Red Wings team, and that's what we have to build around right now. They're coming back. I wouldn't worry about it. And I bet you pretty shortly we will see what the initial offer will be. So I think yes. Short answer, yes. I kind of gave a little bit of an Art answer there, but yes, they will be back.
I agree. Art, pay attention, man. We're
Yeah,
almost done.
Hey, you know what?
Only got a few minutes left.
There's a lot of players that aren't being qualified. I mean, this is crazy. Craig Button was absolutely right. There's going to be a slew and young players that Red Wings could pick from. It's nuts. It's going crazy.
We'll see. We'll see what'll happen in the next few hours and tomorrow. And then last but not least, we know we got another Draper in the Detroit Red Wings organization yesterday when Chris Draper was able to draft his son, Keenan. It was a very, very cool moment. The Red Wings tweeted this. This is something Keenan said last night at his press conference. I was just very happy to be even considered to get picked and to be picked by such a high-class organization with so much history. Just so happy to be picked, and to have my dad be able to be there and be part of it is very, very humbling. And then we have the sweetest picture from the Detroit Red Wings team photographer, Dave Regnick. Look at this. Keenan sitting in his dad's locker way back when, I'm assuming late 90s, maybe early 2000s. You don't know. I don't know. What year were these kids born? It's making me feel really old. But
2002.
Dude, that's what you say? He was born in 2002?
Yeah, I was not born in 2000.
2020.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I remember last year, the past few years in training camp, looking at, the rosters of every team for prospects tournament, and I'm looking at the years they were born, and I was like, oh man, I'm getting old. I am getting old. They're kids. Damn. So yeah, I didn't mean to swear, but 2000. So I'm assuming it was 2000s. I'm pulling an Art today. I'm just letting loose on this podcast here.
Carly, just do me a favor. Please put the broccoli behind you again.
You want it back? I moved it.
Because I know you're kind of having a lot of fun, and 2002. Okay, yeah. 18 and 2 is 20. Okay, that makes sense. But I think you need your brain food behind you. I think you need your broccoli, because I don't know if it's hypoglycemic or your blood sugar's running low or something, but you need a little bit of pizzazz.
I do.
And I love the look.
I love the look.
No, you do a fine job. You do a great job. I don't mean it quite like that. What I'm saying is that I don't know. I like the broccoli look. I guess that must be it.
Maybe I'll bring it back. I'll think about it. Art. Maybe just for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carly. I appreciate
that. But that's all I have for this Let's Socialize. Looking forward to next Tuesday.
That's Art, no, you're done for today, okay? All right.
Okay, I'm done. Okay.
Yeah, it's done. That does it for Let's Socialize. AAA says thank you, with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. And you guys, that wraps up another edition of the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. If you missed anything today, you can head over to our Word on Woodward YouTube channel and watch all of our past interviews. And of course, you can listen to the show as a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. We'll have all of this weekend's news. Free agency will be huge for the Red Wings next week right here on the Word on Woodward, coming to you Tuesday at noon on Detroit Tigers and Detroit Red Wings social media and websites. We'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for tuning in all week long. We'll see you Tuesday.